Okay.
Okay, so I have Ted Gibson here with me, which is awesome.
Wow.
And Ted is going to talk to us about his career. We're in career week for modern. So
Wow.
we want to give some resources and advice and kind of mentorship to some of the younger people in the industry. And
Mhm.
Ted is a great person to do that. So I'm going
Thank
to
you.
start, if you guys don't know, I'm going to have Ted kind of introduce himself and sort of tell us a short summary of his very long career, and then we're going to get into some questions. So, Ted, take it away. Tell us a little bit
Well,
about how you
I
got into
love
the
that you
industry.
said short summary for his long career. But I'm truly grateful to be able to be on Career Week with Modern Salon. You know, had many countless covers of Modern, and I've been very, very grateful to be able to contribute to, I feel, the best business in the world, the business of beauty. And I have been a hairdresser. First of all, my name is Ted Gibson. I've been a hairdresser for over 30 years. And the thing that I always say is that having a beauty school license changed my life tremendously. And what I mean by that is with that license, the things that I've been able to accomplish, and I'm just gonna rattle them off.
Go for it.
I have been a beauty school teacher. I have worked behind the chair. I have been a global educator for a major manufacturer and traveled the globe with that manufacturer, created product actually for that manufacturer. I have owned 4 salons. I have had a successful product line that was sold at Henry Bendel, Saks Fifth Avenue, Sephora, and then Target. I have done countless number of magazines from editorial for consumer trade as well as trade for hairdressers and the beauty business. I have done shows in fashion shows in New York, in Milan, in Paris, and in London. I have worked with A-list celebrities for red carpet events, from the Golden Globes to the Oscars to red carpet to the Tony, everything, the Tonys, everything you can imagine. And the reason why I say that is because with that beauty school license, the things that I've been able to accomplish, a black gay kid from Texas, small town Texas, who had a dream and really, really wanted to fulfill that dream. So I'm very honored to be here. I hope that what I have to say to you is not only inspiring, but also motivating and also thought-provoking, and all the things that will help to push you to be the best person you can be, not only just the best hairdresser, but also our makeup artists, our skincare specialists, or nail tech, whatever you are and whatever you do in the beauty business. And I hope what I have to say to you today inspires to push you to the next level of your career.
I mean, your resume is just incredible. So when you graduated from beauty school, what did
Yes.
you want to do? And did you think in your wildest dreams that you'd be here right now doing what you're doing?
Well, partly yes and partly no. I went to barber school first. And the reason why I went to barber school is because I'm from a little town called Killeen, Texas. And it didn't have a beauty college that I could go to part-time because I couldn't afford to quit my full-time job and go to school. So I sold newspaper advertising during the day and then found a school. I was the first actual student at the school, and it ended up being a barber college. The
Okay.
reason why is because it was brand new. In the barber college, you would learn everything that you needed to learn, from perms, nails, everything. It wasn't just clipper cutting. And by going to the school, I knew that I could create the life that I wanted to create. And being the first student, I was able to go at night from 5:30 till 10 every single day. I did
Wow.
that for about a year and a half to get my license. And then I went back for 1,000 more hours to get my teacher's certificate. So, but the reason why I say I kind of knew and didn't know, because I said in school, I said, you know what, I'm going to work on stars one day. But I didn't know what that meant. You know, this was in the 80s. And in the 80s, I would flip through magazines and I would see models on, the covers, or see models on the inside in a fashion editorial. And I never thought that, okay, there is someone that does that hair, and there is someone
Mm-hmm.
that does that makeup, and there is someone that puts those clothes on them. I wasn't thinking about that. So even when I was in school, I wasn't thinking about that. But when I said, I want to work on stars someday, that's kind of the beginning of it, I think.
Yeah. So this is actually a good segue. Someone wrote in a question and asked, how did you actually get your first editorial styling job? And I'm sure there's a lot that happened in between graduating from barber school and doing that, but how did you do that?
Well, you know, I always say that if I don't trust anyone that doesn't have a coach. I'm gonna say it again. I don't trust anyone that does not have a coach. Tony Robbins has a coach. Oprah Winfrey has a coach. I'm sure Steve Jobs has a coach. You know, Dwayne Wade has a coach. I believe that everyone who's extremely successful has a coach. And I've had many in my life, and I continue to have many in my life. The reason why is because that coach will help you to think of things differently, and also things maybe you don't see in yourself that will help you get to the next level. So why I bring that up is because my first editorial job really was inspired by the idea of someone seeing something in me. His name was Horst Reckelbacher. He was the founder of Aveda, and he was my mentor. And he told me one day that he wanted me to move. I was working for Aveda at the time in Minneapolis. He told me one day, what I want you to do is I want you to move to New York. You can teach at the school, you can be the creative director, and you can also do editorial. And that's really how the idea of the entire experience of going into editorial came. And it's because of Horst. So always think about having someone in your life who can push you or to think of things that are going to be different for you. And Horst
Who are
was that.
some other notable mentors that you've had in your life that you can think of, and how have they helped you get to that next step and next step?
Well, I have a life coach now who's actually been my life coach forever.
Okay.
Her name is Zan Ray. And Zan was the first salon that I worked at in Austin, Texas, when I moved from Killeen to Austin. She was the most expensive haircut in Austin. There was something that she had that I wanted. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew there was something that she had that I wanted. And what she taught me was how to cut a great haircut. She taught me how to give a great shampoo and think about what the experience was for someone to be in my chair and also to be at the shampoo bowl. And that entire 45 minutes or an hour that they spend with me is so important. So Zan taught me that. And she, I mean, when I think about it, it's profound because she was so hard on me. Like one day I had this really, one of my favorite shirts, and it was a linen shirt. And I bought it with of course, my hard-earned money. And it was a dry clean shirt. So I would send it to dry cleaners. And then one day it ended up, there was just a slight little bitty hole that was right on the chest of the shirt. And I wore it to work, and she said, I don't want you to wear that shirt to work anymore. I said, why? She said, because it has a hole in it. I said, okay. She said, I don't want you to wear that shirt to work anymore. I said, okay. I didn't listen to her. I wore the shirt to I keep saying school because it was like school. I wore that shirt, and when I wore the shirt, she put her finger there and she ripped it. And she said, I told you not to wear that shirt anymore. And I'm like horrified. I can't believe you did that. Why in the world? But in hindsight, the reason why she did that is because the perception of someone that's coming in, who's my guest, who's sitting in the chair, who is paying at that time $100 for a haircut, which is expensive, is not expecting me to look any other way than perfection and professional. And with that hole in the shirt, made me not look professional. So I got it. And when I talk to young hairdressers, you know, with the onset of social and the onset of, you know, having a drink in your hand and all of those things, I think it's really important to think about what you want your persona to be. And that it's vital, again, to have somebody in your life who will push you into thinking of things a little bit differently.
So, you brought up young hairdressers, and this is a conversation we've had quite a bit, especially these students that are coming out of beauty school right now, or they went to beauty school during the pandemic. They don't have any experience of like actual hands and hair because of how things have been going. And a lot of these students today, it's just so different. Like
Sure.
what would you tell them as they're looking for the next step in their career or even starting a career? I think some of them are like afraid
Yeah,
of, actually working on a real person. Like,
I believe
what
it.
is your words of wisdom for that?
I believe it. I think in the times that we live in the digital age, I think that we as hairdressers and consumers are more educated than we ever have been.
Mm-hmm.
We have access to so much education, we have access to so much information. So I think it's important to get that information and get that access, absolutely. But what's important is to think about the practicality of it. Just because you watch someone on YouTube cut a bob doesn't mean you necessarily know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it means to cut that bob. Because the bob is the hardest thing to cut. Even though
Yeah.
it looks really easy, that you're actually putting something that's square on something that's round, which is the head. If you're putting something square on it. So it takes a lot of technique and a lot of discipline to be able to know the nuances of creating that straight line. And I think it's hard to just watch a video and do that. That practical information of going to continuing education, get your hands in there. We are coming back. My encouragement to you is to go and take a class, a hands-on class with a mannequin head or a live model, and learn how to cut, not digitally. That would be
Okay.
my advice.
It seems like you're really passionate about teaching in
Yes,
general.
yes.
Who's the best teacher that you had? Let's start there and why.
Oh my God, when I went to barber school, it was Mr. Weaver and it was Mr. Torres and Judy. And what the three of them really instilled in me is really understanding how to do it from the inside out, if that makes any sense.
Like have the passion for it?
The passion for it, the determination, the vulnerability, the getting out of your comfort zone and getting out of my comfort zone. And those things are really challenging to do if you think that you know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't think you know everything, it's important to have those teachers in your life that can help guide you. And
Mm-hmm.
same thing as a mentor. Jason, my husband, and I, we put together a nonprofit called the Worth Up Alliance. And that Worth Up Alliance is strictly just for that. We found three problems within our industry. Because if you don't know it or not, the industry is 90% women. And the challenge with funding, the challenge with mentorship, the challenges with community, we have addressed those things within this nonprofit. And I'm super excited about it. We just launched it last year during the pandemic because we felt like there was a need for education, there's a need for mentorship, and there's a need for the inequity in funding for our
So,
industry.
so professionals can they can take classes, they can get matched with somebody. Like, tell me a little bit more about
Absolutely.
what it does.
Well, what we've done is Jason has interviewed probably about 40 individuals who have done it already, if you
Okay.
will.
Mm-hmm.
So he has interviewed Dion Phillips, who was the pioneer in lash extensions here in Hollywood. And she tells her story of how she became the lash queen of Hollywood and what that experience has been for her. He also interviewed Sergio Rivera,
Mm-hmm.
who actually won the Oscar for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, who did all the makeup on Viola Davis for this last year's Oscars. He won that Oscar. So Jason interviewed him for that. He also interviewed Kate Walsh, who, if you don't know Kate Walsh is, Kate was on Grey's Anatomy, who's actually coming back. She's one of my clients. She's actually coming back to Grey's Anatomy with Sandra Oh, who's also one of my clients. And they're both going back to Grey's Anatomy. And about 8 years ago, she launched a line called Boyfriend. Check it out. It's amazing. So as a beauty entrepreneur, he interviewed her. And, that's the thing that I think is really important about the Worth Up Alliance is that you can go to worthupalliance.org. You can sign up. You can make a donation for $9.99 that goes actually to helping the next generation of hairdressers open their own businesses. That $9 gives you access to all of those people that I just mentioned and much more by that donation. And then also what the Worth Up Alliance is doing is we are going to be pairing mentors with mentees, and you will have 6 months of every single month being with your mentor that you can ask questions, that can help you with write a business plan, that help you go for an SBA loan, that can help you think about ways to get funding, that helps you to find a location, all of the things that you may not know that you need help with, and that maybe you're afraid to go and ask the person down the street who has done it already, because they may not give you that information. So we've put together these experts that have done it, that are really open to giving their ideas and where they've been and how they've done it, their wins and also their losses. Because if you ask any beauty professional, beauty entrepreneur that has been in the business for a while, they'll tell you the things that worked and the things that didn't. So I think it's really important to know those stories, because those stories will help to inspire you to be better.
Yeah. That's amazing. I was going to ask you, where do you find these mentors? Because like you said, a lot of times maybe in your area, it's a little competitive or you feel uncomfortable or whatever, but that's like the right outlet. Definitely.
It's the right outlet for it. And the reason why the Worth Up Alliance, I'll tell you just a little bit of history. Back in March of 2020, when everything got shut down, we were shut down on the 25th, the 15th of March. And we were here at our salon starring by Ted Gibson here in La Brea and Los Angeles. And Jason and I was on a Saturday, I think, and we looked at ourselves and we said, holy crap. What's going on? We got to close. We got to figure out what we're going to do. So we went home. We have a house in Palm Springs. So we went to Palm Springs and we started hearing, the restaurant business and how the restaurant business, everything was taken care of. Like they said, support the restaurants, DoorDash, you can buy vouchers, you can buy credit card, all of these things you could do for the restaurant, do the restaurant for here. You can go pick up. Meanwhile, crickets about the beauty business. Like no one was there to help us. All the manufacturers, I'm just going to say it, all the manufacturers we have helped support build multi-million dollar, billion-dollar businesses. We didn't hear anything from them. There was no support. In my opinion, they should have all came together and came up with some way that people would be able to save their businesses without necessarily going and getting free education on their website to learn how to cut a bob. Like that's not going to pay my rent, right? So the whole idea of how the Worth Up Alliance came about was because we asked about 50 hairdressers, 60 hairdressers on a Zoom one afternoon. And that Zoom was supposed to be about 30 minutes and ended up being close to 3 hours. Because what we wanted to do is really find out how we could support each other. We weren't in it alone, all of us were going through it at the same time. So how can we send a positive message that would give everyone a shot in the arm, a boost, something of feeling, somehow good in this terrible situation. And it ended up being where we launched this campaign called #WorthUp. And it was amazing. We had all of these hairdressers that talked about, raising your prices. And we talked about, knowing that you're not in the salon and making sure that you know that you are valuable, that you and your communities really make a huge difference, from the barbershop to the nail shop to the, hair salon to the skin person. All of us are really, really important to our communities, which transfers to our states, which transfers to our countries, which transfers to our world. And we have to know how important we are. So that Worth Up Alliance, and that's how the Worth Up Alliance was born, because of that experience.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that explanation.
Yeah. So it's, it's really to bring everything full circle for me, because, I've been in this business for such a long time. And, as you were saying, I'm really truly grateful for the accomplishments that I've had and the accomplishments that I will have, because I'm still going very, very strong in this business, and being able to help the next generation know that they are worth it, and that they have contributed to some really, really, really amazing things. It's not an easy business. I remember when I told my mom and dad that I wanted to be a hairdresser, they're like, "What do you want to do that? You're going to stand on your feet. You're going to not make any money." And I'm like, no. Yes, I am. My haircut is $2,400. That's how much I charge for my salon haircut. And yes, I've grown to that. I am not egocentric. I'm just telling you the truth. I worked really, really hard to be where I am. And I'm not saying, but that suits my demographic and that suits where I am in my career. I'm not saying that every hairdresser should think about charging $2,400, but I do believe you need to know your worth and need to know your value. And with that comes is a price.
So how did you develop that kind of confidence? Like, you're obviously working in a lot of like high stakes situations, on the red carpet, on TV. You charge $2,400 for a haircut. Like, how did you develop that confidence?
Oh my God. Well, how did I develop that confidence? I think that I am not an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I'm very soft-spoken, if you know who I am. I'm very soft-spoken. I grew up an only child. My dad was in the military, in the Army. So when I was a young kid, I was supposed to be seen and not heard, that I didn't necessarily have a voice. But I can tell you that even with that being said, I still made sure that my voice was heard, even though I wasn't supposed to. I would get in trouble a lot for that. But the confidence, I believe, comes from experience. I think the experience of life helps you with confidence, and knowing my worth, and know that everything isn't for everybody. Like, I know that I'm not for everybody, and knowing that that's okay. Knowing that that's okay. And things like that just happen. Like, I'll tell you a story. This past weekend, I went to a big event, the Vive Clicquot polo event, here in Los Angeles. And I've never been to the one here, but I've been to the one in New York in the Hamptons. And I did hair for it first, and then her name is Lindsay Price. She's Curtis Stone, famous chef Curtis Stone's wife, she's also an actress. And Jason came, and we all four of us went together, and we met some friends there. And it was really, really a fantastic event on Saturday. And I have worked with just about every single actress pretty much you could think of in Hollywood. If you Google it, you'll see. But the reason why I say that is because, for me, my platform has always been about textures of hair, not the color of the skin. So I didn't care if you were Black or white or Asian or Latino or Indian. It didn't matter to me. To me, it was always about the texture of hair and what I can do in order to enhance that texture, regardless if it was curly or straight or whatever. So I'm standing there with some friends of mine, I'm talking, and I look over, and this client that I haven't seen in many, many, many years walks by me, and she looks at me dead in the face, and I say, "Oh my God, hi." She turned her head and kept walking. And as she turned her head and kept walking, I was still calling her name. Do you know, she didn't even respond. So why I'm saying that is because if I let that continue to hurt me days after, I would be in trouble.
Sure.
So what I'm telling you is we are always going to have things in our life that not necessarily go our way.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have things in our life where people may not appreciate me, and it's okay because I'm not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the confidence that you were asking about. It has been developed for me
Mm-hmm.
because of the business that we're in.
And you obviously have a very loyal tribe of clients that have been with you forever, and they
Yeah.
still come to you every week, every month, whenever.
Exactly. Yes.
And they're your people. So
what I'm saying is it happens to all of us.
yeah.
It doesn't matter what part of the game you're in.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a $10 haircut or a
I love
$1,500,
that story. Yeah.
that's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's all in how we deal with what happens that makes us stronger, that makes us fabulous, and that makes us know our worth.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
So you brought up celebrities and the supermodels. So we have to ask, working with them, do you treat them differently than another client that would come into your salon for a haircut? And like, how do you navigate the famous aspect of all of it?
Well, I think the first order of business is be yourself.
Yeah.
That's the first order of business. And why I say that is because I wouldn't treat you any different than I would treat Angelina. I wouldn't treat you any different than I would treat Sandra Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I think at an early age I knew that how to treat people,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter if you make $12 million a movie, or if you have saved up every penny you have in order to come get your haircut with me at Christmas time. Like, it's still the same thing for me. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's refreshing to hear. You're very humble, and I love that about this conversation so far. It's been
Thank you so much.
fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that. Nicole, yes, I could be a real.
Yeah, you definitely could.
I totally could be, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it can be gone just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it be gone just like that for people. And then what are you saying?
Yep.
Because this business is fickle. We all know how fickle it is. As Heidi Klum says, you're either in or you're out. Evita saying, and it's the truth. It's the truth.
So, I mean, you've diversified a lot, which is probably part of your success. So, like, talk a little bit about. I'm actually writing an article right now about for salon owners, and I've encountered a lot of people saying owning a salon is not for everyone. You can love being behind the chair, you can love the business, but owning a salon is a very different beast.
I think you should yell that from the mountaintop.
So, like, talk a little bit about owning salons, and I mean, you've owned several, and you still own at least one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, love it and hate it at the same time. Like, what do you think about that?
Okay, well, Jason, my husband, and I, we opened our first salon in 2003. And before that, living in Minneapolis, I was thinking about when I was working at Aveda, leaving Aveda and going to open my own salon. And then this opportunity came, from Horst to move to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And it always kind of been on my mind, but I wasn't sure that was what was going to happen. And the reason why we decided to open a salon is because I have another story for you. So I was doing all this editorial for Elle, Cosmo, 17, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, every magazine, Marie Claire, every magazine you can think of, I was doing editorial for. And this moment of doing covers and how models were still on the covers of magazines. It wasn't about celebrity yet. And it was starting to happen. It was starting to change where celebrities were the ones that were going to be on covers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing a job for Marie Claire, doing editorial for Marie Claire. And the fashion director at the time said to me, Ted, I have this opportunity that I think you should do. And she said, it's a cover. I said, oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
She said, it's a celebrity. I said, oh, I don't want to do celebrity. She goes, no, it's a celebrity. And I think you would do it. You need to do it. It would be great for your career. And I said, I really don't want to do celebrities because at that time, if you were a fashion hairdresser, which we considered fashion hairdresser if you lived in New York City, you were really good because we created the trend. So if you think about Devil Wears Prada, when I cut those bangs on Annie Hathaway, by the way, but when you think about Devil Wears Prada and she talks about the cerulean blue and how the cerulean blue trickled all the way down to the consumer and it went through this and this and this, and then that's the reason why you're wearing it now. That's what the mentality of what we were feeling when we were in New York City. And if
Okay.
you lived in Los Angeles, you were a celebrity hairdresser and you weren't very good. It's true.
Okay.
Because all you know how to do was do a little curl and put it on top of their head, like doo-doo curls on top of her head. Like we would do fashion shows. Those fashion shows would be every 6 months and couture in between. And then those every 6 months, the trend would come out. The editors would be there backstage. They would take the pictures. They would decipher what that trend would be. Then it would be in the magazine. That would come out 4 months later.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not want to be a celebrity hairdresser. So she said, no, Ted, I really think you should do this. And I said, well, okay, tell me more about it. She said, okay, well, it is Angelina Jolie. It's the cover of Marie Claire in the morning. And it's the cover of Cosmopolitan in the afternoon. And Patrick Dumas-Chillier is shooting it. And those of you who have seen Devil Wears Prada, you know that moment where she's saying, get Patrick on the phone, get Patrick on the phone. That's the Patrick I'm talking about.
So how do you say no?
So I said, really? She goes, yes, you have to do it. I said, okay, I'll do it. I went to London, first class, stayed in the best hotel, ate the best food, shot with Angie morning and afternoon, and it was a love affair. And if I hadn't have taken that advice and that career, I would not be where I am today. Because the reason why we opened our first salon is because everyone was wondering who is doing Angelina's hair. It was from that moment where she was going from the weird girl with blood around her neck after she divorced, when she was with Billy Bob Thornton. After she divorced Billy Bob and adopted Maddox, and then turned into this icon that we know today. And I would say that the reason why that happened is because hair changes everything. And hair was the moment of why Angelina changed. And I had something to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
That big, sexy hair, those covers, all of that was me. So that's the reason why the salon opened, because we wanted to capitalize on the idea of everything happening from that moment.
And that's some business acumen.
Yes. Yes.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. Even if you're an independent stylist, you have to know your business stuff for sure.
You have to know your business stuff. So we opened the salon. It was 12 chairs, right? 12 chairs. And everyone thought we were uptown, but we were in Flatiron, 23rd Street. When we moved to that location, there wasn't even a Starbucks. Right across the street was Madison Square Park, and Madison Square Park still had junkies and hookers in it. We moved to this neighborhood where it wasn't necessarily desirable, but we knew that what we were doing was something really special, and it really was. And that salon was open for 14 years. So the New York salon, we had one in Washington, D.C. that was almost 30 chairs and 8 treatment rooms that was above Louis Vuitton, in Chevy Chase, Maryland, above Louis Vuitton and Jimmy Choo. And then we had another one in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the W Hotel that was open for about 4 years. The one in DC was open about 4 years. And then starring by Ted Gibson, the first smart salon in the world, is open for about 2 years.
So what do you say to people that like they're intrigued by the idea of opening a salon? Like, what are the realities of actually being a business owner? And the practicalities of it?
Well, I think that you have to, that's the reason why we created the Worth Up Alliance, and I'll take it back to that, because everyone needs mentors. Everyone needs someone to bounce the ideas off of. And, you know, Jason talks about, oh, we're supposed to have payroll? Oh, we're supposed to go and call the light people to turn on the lights?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're supposed, you know, all of those things that you don't know. Because Jason says, okay, so I was a busy stylist and I knew that I could do it better than the a-hole that was, you know, my boss. and that I could do it myself. And I went from the fun guy in the break room to the guy who ended up being the boss. And it's not always that easy to transfer from one point to the next.
Mm-hmm.
The respect factor, the people that, oh, we were kikiing in the break room and now you're my boss. Oh, no, all of that. So I encourage people that really want to open a small business to do it. If it's in your heart to do it, just know the things that are going to go along with that. It's a lot of hard work.
So what made you move to LA or California from New York? You seem to have like everything going for you in New York.
Yeah, well, when I always tell this story, I'm full of stories today.
Love it.
I always tell the story of we built a really phenomenal business in New York City
Mm-hmm.
on Fifth Avenue. And the whole year of 2016, the end of 2016 into 17, no, the whole year of 2016, Jason wasn't feeling great. He was not in a happy mood. He wasn't, there was something going on. But part of that catalyst was I would cut someone's hair. I would take all the product off the shelf and take it up to the front desk, tell her all these things that I used on her, expecting her to buy it. She would pull out her phone and she would look at that and go online and then buy everything that I recommended online. And we're like, okay, so there's something happening. The
Mm-hmm.
business is changing. There's something going on, right? And as this was going on, we were like, okay, something's happening. And we, over that 14 years of being together, we probably had that salon. We probably had, I want to say, 3 major walkouts. And what I mean by walkouts are a group of stylists who we've built from a $50 haircutter to a $250 haircutter, decide that they think that they can do it better themselves, or they have spent enough time in being at the salon that they know everything they want and they can take their clientele and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And in September of 2016, we had 5 of our top producers leave that salon, the New York salon. And Jason and I looked at each other and we said, okay. And meanwhile, the retail aspect of everything was changing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about over 50 employees. We're talking about 4 front desk people, 2 managers, in-house PR, 10 assistants, stylist and colorist, and busy. And we went to do a hair show in Dallas, Texas in October, and we're miserable. And Zan was there, our coach, and we finished the show and we went back to the hotel, and she was sitting on her bed and we were sitting on the floor. And she said, every time I talk to you guys are just miserable. And we said, yeah, we are. And she said, why don't you close the salon? And we said, what?
Yeah.
Why don't you close the salon? Like, what would everyone think? What would everyone say? She's like, it doesn't matter. You're miserable. You are miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have this salon open? That was in October. 2 weeks later, we made the decision. We closed that December. And it was the best decision we could have ever made because it wasn't working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It did everything it was supposed to have done. And the reason why we moved to LA is because we wanted a different quality of life. We felt like we could not reinvent ourselves in New York City. We had lived there for over 20 years. We had created a great brand. We have had salons. We had it made, essentially. We didn't have to, after we closed the salon, we had a couple days where we could do clients, making enough money that we didn't have to worry about anything.
Mm-hmm.
We had a house upstate New York. We had an apartment in the West Village. I mean, golden, right?
Mm.
We were bored. We weren't ready to stop creating. and we couldn't create anymore in New York City. So we sold everything and moved to LA, moved to Hollywood. And it was the best thing we could have ever done.
You look genuinely happy from the inside
I'm so
out. So
happy.
it seems like it was
I
good for
am.
you.
I am. You know, I love New York City. I like LA, but I love New York City.
Yeah.
I just don't want to live there. It's not the same for me anymore.
Yeah.
So I'll go and visit, but you know, I like LA. Like, it's beautiful weather. You know, we have a great salon. We have a great team here. There's some things brewing that I can't go into right now, but I'm very, very excited about the future and just moving forward, moving ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I have two more questions for you,
Okay.
and then I'll let you go.
All right.
So this is a reader submitted question. What is one thing that you would tell your younger self?
One thing that I would tell my younger self is get over it.
That's it.
Stop worrying.
Yeah.
It's going to be great because you put in the work. Once you put in the work, it's going to be great. Don't fret. Get over yourself.
Love that. Okay, last question is, tell us a little bit about how you met your husband, because it seems like you two are just perfect and you're talking a lot about him. So talk a little bit about how you met him and your love story.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can see that I'm brightened up.
Yeah.
We've been together almost 28 years.
Wow.
Yes. And I was teaching beauty school. And at that time, I had dreadlocks down to here. I was super effing hot. I mean, like, beyond. I was a competitive bodybuilder as well.
Oh
so
my gosh.
The body was, you know, banging. And the class that I taught was in the middle of the program, and it's a 9-month program. And the class that I taught was in the middle. And I would see Jason, you know, I would have a gallon of water because I drank a gallon of water every day. And I would have my gallon of water walking around with me, and I wore clogs and, you know, dreadlocks, you know that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I would see him walking around the school, and I'm like, who's that freak? Like, because he had a goatee that was, you know, dyed red. His eyebrows were dyed red. He had a little bit of hair that was dyed red. And he was as club kid as you can get in 1994. So those of you who don't know what club kid is, Google it because you'll understand what I mean. So you know, they dressed up, they wore eyeshadow, and, you know, kind of like how kids are today, but it's more mainstream now than it was then. Then it wasn't mainstream. Now it's more mainstream. And I would see him walk around. I'm like, oh my God, he's a freak. So by the time he got to my class, my platform again was about textures of hair, that it wasn't about the color of the skin. So they all had an assignment. There were about 20 people in the class. Okay, so this is the assignment, you guys. You have to bring in a black model to do a relaxer on, a sodium hydroxide relaxer. And he said, well, why can't I bring in, you know, someone who's mixed race and use that? I said, no, that's not the assignment. The assignment is you have to bring in a black model to do a sodium hydroxide relaxer on. And he said, well, that's so contradictory, you know, blah, blah, blah. So he walked out of my class twice, and I thought it was so funny. I'm like, who the hell is this dude think he is walking out on Ted Gibson, right? So who does he think he is? And the reason why I wanted everyone to bring in, because these white kids would probably never, ever have the experience again of doing a sodium hydroxide relaxer. So I wanted them to have that experience of doing that relaxer so they can understand how to do it. They may not ever do it again, but it's important for me as a teacher to be able to give them everything that I could give them. And that was part of the assignment. So he walked out of my class twice, and I thought it was so funny. The next thing I knew, I was being promoted to an innovative global educator, and we went on our first date when I got my promotion, and been together ever since.
Oh gosh.
And yes, he stayed over the night we went out on a date. And we went to breakfast the next day, and he said, you're my boyfriend. I said, I'm not your boyfriend. I don't want a boyfriend. He goes, I don't care what you tell your friends, but I'm telling my friends you're my boyfriend. I said, you can tell your friends whatever you want. I'm not your boyfriend. 6 weeks later, I was his boyfriend.
and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that story. That was awesome.
Thank
you.
Can I just say one?
No, yes.
Okay, so there is this really brilliant movie called Mahogany. And Mahogany is from the 70s. And those of you who love fashion and love beauty and love hair, you have to watch it.
Okay.
And it's with Diana Ross, Tracy Ellis Ross's mom, and Billy D. Williams. And at the time, they were, kind of the elite hot Black actors in Hollywood. And this movie, Mahogany, and Jason had never seen it, so that was that night he stayed the night, our date. He's watched that movie with me because he had never seen it. I wanted him to see it. And in that movie, she talks about, she becomes this famous model and very high fashion model in Milan, and the best clothes, and she creates her own clothing line and all this stuff. And Billy D. Williams says to her, regardless of how successful you are, if you have no one to share it with, it means nothing. And that has stuck with me my entire career and my life. And I'm so fortunate to have my success and sharing it with someone. It's lucky. That's
a wonderful note to end on. That was amazing.
Oh,
thank you so much for being so gracious with your time. I feel like people are going to get a lot of great insight out of this. I mean, you've shared some gems. So thank you so much.
Go to worthupalliance.org.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Here we go.